whole session. So right now I'm going to move on and invite Patrick Sullivan to talk to you. Patrick is the Director for Primary Curricular and Assessment at the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. And Patrick brings a unique perspective, I suppose, to his discussion that he is going to talk to you about the education about religions and beliefs and ethics curriculum, which has been very topical over the last week or two in the media, and also about the ethics programme. And he's also going to take you through the evolution of the Community National Schools programme, the Goodness Me, Goodness You, and as I say, he brings a unique perspective because he was one of the first principals in a community national school in Navan. So I'm delighted to welcome this morning Patrick Sullivan.
Thanks very much, Mary. I'm just waiting for the PowerPoint. I'm not sure if there's anybody who can help me out with this, or maybe I can. Oh, here we are. Sorry, it's here. It's lined up. Thanks very much. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and I'd just like to say a big thank you to Pat O'Mahony for inviting me to address you today, this morning, and hopefully to add to the conversation and the robust discussion that has already gone on in this forum, and a very welcomed discussion it is too. I'm wearing a couple of hats today, as Mary outlined, working in the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment as a previous former principal of Ardrey Community National School in Navan, in the LMETB now. And I suppose as a teaching principal, I've taught the Goodness Me, Goodness You programme, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. And in my role as director of NCCA, I'm now working on the education about religions and beliefs and ethics curriculum as well. So hopefully I can give you an overview of exactly what's happening in the sector around these sort of areas. I'm sure I'll probably raise more questions and answers because it's a bit of a whistle-top tour. But I suppose I want to start off by talking a little bit about ethos. And as Fionnuala Waldron called it a couple of years ago, this fuzzy concept that we have of what ethos actually means. And I suppose I really admire Joanne and Orla's research in this area and trying to nail down what on earth ethos actually is. And I'd contend that in Irish primary education in particular, since the forum on patronage and pluralism, the patrons are going through a little bit of an identity crisis in relation to ethos. Everybody's asking themselves very important questions in relation to this. Who are we? What do we provide? What do we attempt to do? And who are our schools for? And I suppose I was struck yesterday by the discussions both in this hall and also at dinner last night about these challenging and complex questions. And somebody said to me, but just because they're challenging and complex doesn't mean that you just discard them. I actually think that's probably what I'm taking from here today, that heart, that hope about asking ourselves the very difficult questions about our schools, because they're significant and they have a real impact on the lives of children going forward. So, beginning, I suppose, with I suppose there's two parts. The first part of my presentation is around the Community National Schools and Goodness Me, Goodness You. And the second part is around the development of the education about religions and beliefs and ethics curriculum. So the Community National Schools were, I suppose, announced in 2007. The first one opened in September 2008. In a way, they were a response to the diversity in the population of Ireland, recognition that in the previous 2 decades there was a great, I suppose, change in the children attending our primary schools, a change in background, change in belief, change in ethnicity and cultural identity and so on. I suppose a recognition, as Professor Hyland outlined yesterday, that 96% of our schools are denominationally based, are faith-based schools, and that there was a need for choice in this area. And anybody who's been following the media, I suppose, especially around August this year, it gathered momentum a lot this year. I think every year there's been, I suppose, a flow of media coverage in this area. So patronage is a big issue in, I suppose, Irish primary schools today, and community national schools we're seeing as an attempt by the state, not the first attempt, I think Owen mentioned yesterday, there are model schools, but I suppose an attempt for the first sort of rolling out of state-based primary education. So what is the ethos of community national schools? Well, as I said, it's a very fuzzy concept, ethos. It's difficult to nail down, but the community national schools have attempted to do this. And so I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to read through a few of those bullets. So it's around becoming the centre of the local community, encouraging and supporting children to live their lives to the full. High standards are the goal in teaching and learning. Children are valued and treated with respect, diversity is recognised and celebrated, and respect for plurality of faith is seen as an integral to the daily routine of the school. Now, I could probably contend that this is not unique to community national schools, and that you could be talking about an ethos statement there from any type of school in Ireland. I think that's an acceptable view to hold. However, I suppose I draw your attention to the bottom statement around respect for plurality of faith, because in my own research into the community national schools, this stood out from the principals, in particular from the school leaders, that is the striving towards this respect for plurality of religions and beliefs and faith during the school day that is an integral part to the ethos of community national schools. So who are the schools for? Well, the schools are for any child in the community. And I suppose this data is just a breakdown of the nationalities of children attending community national schools as taken from last year. It's not the most up-to-date set of data. So 26% Irish children, 36% from European countries, 11% Asian, 25% African children, 1% from the US and the UK, and 2% undeclared. And I suppose, as you'd expect, with such a diversity of nationality, also you have a diversity of religions and beliefs and children from different backgrounds. 44% Catholic, 7% Orthodox, which is the largest growing denomination in Ireland at the moment, 25% other Christian, 16% Muslim, 5% Hindu. But I suppose one interesting stat is 1% declare themselves as not having a religion, which is interesting when you consider that that has seemed to be a perceived trend in Ireland. So the children attending these schools come from diverse backgrounds, but it's not true to say that every school mirrors this breakdown of diversity. We have schools in very diverse contexts in Dublin 16, for instance, Balbriggan and so on in County Dublin. We also have schools in much more traditional areas, I suppose traditionally based areas, such as my own school in Navan was quite, I suppose, made up of quite a traditional population coming to the school, and I suppose our two schools in Carrigtwohill in County Cork and in Mallow as well. I should say that there are 11 community national schools currently in operation, 2 open this September. So whatever programme was going to be developed had to underpin the ethos of these schools, and that's what I want to talk about now. It had to be cognizant of this diversity of children coming to the schools, but also that the schools themselves are diverse in themselves and unique in their own way. And so that was the, I suppose, challenge that was put down to the developers of the Goodness Me, Goodness You programme back in 2008. And I suppose community national schools and the programme found themselves in a very strange place. The first 2 schools were about to open in September 2008. There was a huge amount of confusion and ambiguity around what on earth these schools are going to be, what are they going to provide, all those important questions that Joanne and Orla have raised earlier on. And yet there had to be a patrons programme to underpin the ethos of this school as well. So this was real pioneering work. It was undertaken by Dr. Claire Maloney and later Aoibhinn Mullally, who's here today, to develop the programme from junior infants to second class initially. And I suppose it worked on a very much nearly term-to-term basis in the development of that programme to ensure that the programme was developed to meet the needs of the children attending these schools. We're currently in the development of the programme from classes from 3rd to 6th class at the moment. And I suppose what doesn't change, what we are doing is we're looking again at the junior programme, at the programme for the junior classes, and we're thinking about what learning we have undertaken. And I think Professor Hyland again outlined the evolution that happens in early stage development of these concepts and terms and so on. And I'll speak a little bit about that later on. But one thing that informs the whole programme is the guiding principles. I don't expect you to read it, but I suppose this is on our website. It's our guiding principles for the program. They're expressed in the child's voice, in the parent's voice, in the teacher's voice, and in the principal of the school's voice. And the reason why they're expressed in this way is because we see the child as being centre to the educational experience. We see the parent as having a key role in the belief nurturing of the child, which I'll speak about in a few minutes. The teacher's voice being a role model, I think, was referred to earlier on, and the principal in how to implement and their experience of Goodness Me, Goodness You program. But the principles relate to nurture the development of the whole child and to value the child's family, community and belief community. Parents are the primary educators of the child, especially in passing on the traditions and formation of values. Respect and celebration of different beliefs of children is central to the Community National School ethos, manifested in inter-belief conversation. And Goodness Me, Goodness You is developed with school communities in a process of engagement to underpin the ethos of these schools. I want to speak a little bit about that process of engagement with the schools. I think somebody mentioned about policy development and the questions we have to ask ourselves when we are developing policy at national level. And these are the questions that we're asking ourselves all the time. So these are the structures that we develop the curriculum through. Our very first one on the left-hand side is the GMGY, the Goodness Me, Goodness You School Network Group. Now these are our champions. These are teachers in the school that work with ourselves in the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment to develop the curriculum to meet the needs of the children, and they're called the Goodness Me, Goodness You school coordinators. Now, some of them hold posts in the school, and others with the moratorium and posts don't get any extra payment for this really, really important work. But it's very, very worthwhile. So I suppose it begins in the classroom with the lived experience of teachers and children, and it's sort of a grassroots up approach. At the end of the phase of work, we bring our work to the NCCA board, which I suppose is a national structure. All of our curriculum that we develop goes through that board. Robust conversation and discussion and debate always happens at that level, which is really, really important. And so, following on from that, we bring it to the Community National School Management Group, which are the school leaders which are the leaders of the schools, and we speak about I suppose mostly around policy, implementation, and maybe sometimes blue sky thinking. A little bit what we're talking about today about ethos and vision. And we also keep the steering committee in the department abreast of all queries and considerations and implementation issues that we're having to ensure that they're well up to date for that. So what I'm trying to get across here is that the processes and structures that we have, I suppose, developed over the years have become very robust. I suppose it started in the early days with one person sitting in one office, sitting down to write a program. It's changed greatly since then. It's become a much more, I suppose, considered, deliberative approach to curriculum development. And I think that's one of the strengths that the curriculum currently has. Again, I'll refer to Professor Hyland, I was listening intently yesterday afternoon, about the evolution of terms and concepts that were undertaken in Educate Together, and I think that resonated greatly with the Community National Schools and greatly with the Goodness Me, Goodness You programme. And I suppose there's been a huge, well, not a huge shift, but there has been shifts across many of these areas, from faith formation, which the Minister Hanifin in 2007 announced that every child attending community national schools will be faith formed according to their fate or their choice. And I suppose we've in our experience, in our development of the programme, have moved to a more sense of belief nurturing. And I suppose the reason for that is, I suppose, an acceptance that it is very difficult for an Irish teacher of a certain, probably traditional background, to faith form a child of maybe Hindu or Buddhist or Muslim or Islamic background. And so belief nurturing is a concept that we're working with at the moment. And what belief nurturing requires is an integral role of the parent. That the parent is the parent and the family and the home are the primary educators of the child, especially in terms of faith formation, in belief nurturing and deepening the the child's understanding of who they are in relation to their religion or belief. Now, what the program does is create a time and a space during every school day for the child to make those connections and to bring their faith experience or non-faith or belief experience into the classroom and share them with other children in that way. So I suppose the role of the parent and the supports in which the program have put in place to support the parent have been really, really important. We've moved from, I suppose, an idea. It was when you move from faith formation, I suppose then the next question is, well, do you prepare children for confirmation and for the sacraments and so on? And I suppose we've always been very strong in saying that we're not preparing them for the sacraments. We are educating them towards the sacraments. And again, that is so sacramental education rather than sacramental preparation. And again, the key role of the parent and the family are absolutely central to this process. Again, the program facilitates children in bringing their experience into the classroom. A lot of the themes, a lot of the aims of the lessons, there's ample content within the program for children to connect in with the important learnings towards sacramental preparation. But I suppose what schools have done, and schools have been the site of innovation in this sense, that schools have worked closely with the parish at local level to ensure that they may be able to facilitate sacramental preparation. But that's a local initiative between the school and the parish. We've moved from this concept of differentiation to belief-specific teaching. And I think, I suppose, differentiation, what was understood as when we were at the point of saying that we faith, or in 2008, when we were asked if we were faith-forming children, there had to be a time designated for that faith forming to happen. So they're regrouping into different backgrounds, children of different backgrounds, different denominations. And so we've moved towards this concept, we've moved away from that concept somewhat to belief-specific teaching, where children of different religions and beliefs get belief-specific teaching in their religion beliefs about their religion, not, I suppose, in the faith formation sense of in their religion. So from junior infants to second class, children are still regrouped in this way. They are provided with teaching about their religion, and I suppose this is in recognition that children at that age, I suppose, need to be grounded in their own faith, in their own belonging, before coming to a shared space where they can open up and share that experience with children of other religions and belief backgrounds. What we are looking at from 3rd to 6th class is emerging from that concept into a more shared experience, where children who at that point in their lives understand who they are, what they stand for, what their parents' background are, and so on, and are comfortable in sharing their ideas about the world and ideas about religions and beliefs. We moved from a religious education program again, and this is probably the lexicon that has come down traditionally through Irish education, to a multi-belief program. And from imposing to supporting. I'm going to speak a little bit about that. When the Community National Schools were established in 2008, I mentioned that there was real confusion and ambiguity around, maybe not at policy level, but certainly on the ground, about what this curriculum was, what our schools were all about. And I suppose the Goodness Me, Goodness You program became the outward expression of what the ethos was. Now, what I've noticed in the last year or so is that with the maturing of Community National School model, and the Community National Schools becoming more embedded in what they believe in and in what their ethos is, the Goodness Me, Goodness You doesn't need to carry that can anymore. And that Goodness Me, Goodness You, we've actually been asked to get out of the way. We know what we're doing here. And I think that's a really liberating, I think it's a really positive story from the Community National Schools, that they're at a place now where they don't rely on one program to define who they are or what they provide for children. And so we've moved from this, I suppose, idea of imposing an ethos on a school to supporting the ethos of the school. I think that's what a patronage program should do: support and underpin rather than, I suppose, impose. So the implications for the senior classes, I suppose, is what I'm talking about here. And this is one of our Community National Schools, Skullgrania in Dublin 16. is around a values and multi-belief program. The belief-specific teaching, as I mentioned earlier, will become, I suppose, much more of a shared experience, and that's been what teachers have been asking for. We have a quiet time, which has been a feature of the Goodness Me, Goodness You program for our junior classes. It's I suppose, a time to reflect and to connect in the learning that the children have made with their own experience at home and in the world. And of course, that really important conversation, that dialogue between children sharing their ideas about the world and coming to a deeper understanding of themselves and others. And I mentioned about the role of families and parents, and that really is absolutely central and integral to the entire success of the program. Now, I suppose I've taken probably about 10 or 15 minutes there to try and explain a 10, felt longer. I'm sure it felt longer for you. I suppose what I've been trying to do is give you a whistle-top tour. I know that you have more questions than answers, but what we've tried to develop is a short video that tries to capture some of the concepts within the program, spoken in the child's voice. Children are central to the process of Goodness Me, Goodness You. It attempts to capture the exploration, philosophical inquiry, and openness children have in exploring the themes that are present in Goodness Me, Goodness You. And when you see the video, have a look at some of the words in the background, because they're the key words for the program. Hopefully it plays.
What's this? Is this me? Who am I? Who are you? Who are we? Where do we belong? Do we belong together? How? Why? What is our world? What is their world? What is our place? Our different places in this world. Human and non-human. How do we all belong with each other? How can we understand each other? How can we love each other? Let's explore. Let me tell you my self-stories. They are growing and blossoming. Let me hear your self-stories too. Let us share our different self-stories and our different family stories and our different world stories. Come, what's this? Can you see what I see? What could it mean? Tell us its story.
So I should just play the video from the beginning and saved a lot of hot air. What I hope you got from that video is that sense of encounter and engagement across, I suppose, space and time is probably the backdrop, and that children come into connection with and move away from, at times, different concepts in their experience. And so I think you saw the 3 strands that are present in the GMGY program from junior into second class of myself in relation, and that's the important point, in relation, others in relation, and worlds in relation. And some of the themes that you may have seen there was around loving, bereavement, identity, belonging, exploration, questioning, even connection in worlds of relation, different countries in the wider context and communities and so on. So I suppose this is our website, which is gmgy.ie, and I suppose what's on our website is all of the lesson material for teachers that teachers need to teach the program. There's also a very important area for the parents. I think I've tried to get across the integral role of parents in the Goodness Me, Goodness You program, and there's lots of support material for parents on the website also. To connect in with the learning. So every lesson that's taught in the classroom has a parent overview sheet that goes home to the parent so that they understand exactly what's happening in the program and that they can connect in with the program in that way to facilitate their child's understanding. Another important area, I suppose, another important few areas here is the frequently asked questions. it will, I suppose, maybe clear up, well, our hope is it will clear up some of the misconceptions out there of community national schools and the Goodness Me, Goodness You programme. And of course the guiding principles which I presented earlier on in the child's voice, the parent's voice, the principal's and the teacher's voice also, and there's a little link to community national schools. I suppose this website is probably about 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old. Before that, I recognise that there are a perceived lack of, maybe, for want of a better word, openness or publicity around the programme. But I suppose one thing that maybe you need to bear in mind is that this programme was being developed at a time when there was no website online for teachers to access. Schools were given USB keys with the programme on it for their use in schools, and basically because there was a tiny team trying to get this programme off the ground. Thankfully, momentum has developed around the programme and around the development of the programme, and supports, and I think I took you through the processes there of which the programme is being developed have been put in place to ensure that it's being developed in, I suppose, an internationally accepted format for curriculum going forward. So what have we learned from this from our experience? Well, developing a multi-belief curriculum is complex, and I think all community national schools will recognise that, and that from developing something from grassroots up takes an awful lot of time, a lot of energy and commitment to a vision, and that vision is, I suppose, championed by the ETBs who have taken these schools on, and it's championed to a greater extent by the school leaders in these schools that have supported the vision of this curriculum going forward. Schools have become the site for innovation, which, as I mentioned earlier on, is a huge step forward for community national schools. That they have, I suppose, shaken off the shackles of ambiguity around what they believe in and what they are here for and their vision. Now, still, the very important questions of ethos, all of those difficult, complex questions that I mentioned earlier on, they are still being asked every day in the schools, but they are important questions to continue to ask. Schools are the expert on their ethos, and that's what I suppose that's following on from what I've just said. That the questions that they continue to ask themselves, you don't find an answer. You come to a deeper understanding of what you're talking about. So that's part one. How are we for time? 4 minutes. My gosh, my apologies. Okay, so there's a new development in primary education. It's a very significant development. It's the first time that the state has ever been involved in developing a state curriculum, a formal state curriculum in the areas of education about religions and beliefs and ethics in the primary school. And I was going to go through the differences between Goodness Me, Goodness You, or not the differences, but I suppose similarities and differences, and ERB and ethics. So I'll just run through them very quickly. So GMGY is for community national schools, ERB and ethics for all schools. GMGY underpins ethos schools, ERB and ethics contributes to inclusive school communities. GMGY belief nurtures, ERB and ethics education about religious beliefs and, I should say, ethics. Narrative and poetics approach in GMGY, experiential and conceptual approach. Pluralist approach, I suppose, is something similar, and a values approach something similar also. So what is education about religions and beliefs and ethics? Well, these are the two, I suppose, working definitions that we've used, and they're working because we're currently in consultation, as you know. That's why there's been a lot of media, I suppose, media coverage. I should say that we're consulting extremely early in the development of this curriculum, and that's because we are recognising that this is a new initiative for Ireland, and that a lot of, I'll continue in a few moments. So ERB is about, the cultural heritage of world religions, and sorry, these are very much, I suppose, abridged or edited just for the slide. And teaching of ethics includes formation in and promotion of a personal commitment to the dignity and freedom of all human beings. So why is this curriculum being developed? Well, there is no state curriculum out there at the moment, and this is quite internationally unique compared to, I suppose, similar Western democracies as ourselves. It's also a recognition that that religions, beliefs and ethics are an extremely valuable part of the child's experience, and that learning about religions, beliefs and ethics allows a child to connect in with the lived experiences of their friends, their classmates and members of the wider community, and that children's experiences around beliefs and ethics in their daily lives has a massive impact on their experience. It's also recognised that our school classrooms have changed greatly and that there's a huge amount of diversity. And in 2011, in the national census, 28 different belief systems were presented in Ireland. So children in which we are teaching has changed greatly. And I suppose the curriculum will enable teachers to support children in our schools to live in and contribute positively to this diverse society, and to forge positive relationships with children of different belief backgrounds, and to know and understand something important about those belief backgrounds. And of course, it supports inclusive school environments and underpin them. I suppose from my own experience, I trained in the Brunel University in West London. I taught in a place called Hillingdon, a very diverse multicultural area of London. And I suppose when I returned home, I taught in a school in Clogherhead in County Louth. I expected all of the children in my class to be white Irish children. I very quickly found out that that was not the case. But I was transplanted from a culture in London into a very small fishing village in County Louth, Clogherhead, and yet there was great diversity in the classroom. But yet the curriculum supports that I enjoyed in London were completely absent in the Irish context. I didn't have any time and space to connect in with the lives of the children of different religions and beliefs in my class. I found myself trying to develop materials and resources and themes that could maybe draw some of these experiences out for children. Now, I have to say that the school did a fantastic job in catering for these children in a myriad of different ways. But for me as a teacher, there was no curriculum there to support me in developing this. And this is, I suppose, an important aspect to the development of this curriculum as well. So what have we done so far? I'm sorry, Mary, I'll be very quick now. My apologies, it's a whistle-top tour. We've developed, because there's no research in the area, in the Irish context for this, apart from Professor Hyland, who we'll connect in with later on, we've developed 3 background pieces of research. An overview of patrons' programs that are currently out there. So we worked with the patrons doing this. An international audit of what currently happens across 14 different jurisdictions in relation to this. And a very important paper called Encountering Children in the Education about Religions and Beliefs and Ethics curriculum. And this presents a vision of the child as a curious, capable, confident and caring individual, and I suppose recognises the child as an active participant and shaper of, not a shaper, who shapes their educational experience. And all of these have fed into our proposals. And the proposals are found online, and I'll show you the website in a few moments. So what are we consulting on? Well, this is a parent information sheet. We also have teacher booklets and so on. We're trying to make the material as accessible as possible so that the widest range of people can engage in the process, as this is a new initiative for Ireland. We're consulting on the rationale, the vision and the aims that are presented. And I've spoken a little bit about the rationale there and a little bit about the vision. The features of the curriculum, which I'm sorry I don't have time to go into too much, and the big questions, and this is what I do want to talk about, of where does it all fit, because this is what teachers and parents, or not so much parents, but teachers and principals and educationists want to know, where does it all fit? And obviously in the Irish context, the first challenge that you meet is time. Teachers have told us, and we understand and recognise, that the curriculum is overloaded. They've said that there's just too many objectives to be met, that we don't have enough time to teach the curriculum, and that that time is a huge issue and constraining issue for teachers. So what are we doing to address this? Well, with every curriculum that's being developed at primary level going forward, it's going to be an outcomes-based curriculum. Now, outcomes are much broader than learning objectives, and I'll give you an example. In our new language curriculum, we had, in our old one in '99, we had 269 learning objectives. In our new curriculum, we have 79 learning outcomes. So learning outcomes provides a more flexible framework for teachers to work within, and it recognises the, I suppose, the skill that teachers have and professional judgment that teachers have to meet the needs of their children towards those learning outcomes. And we also have supports for teachers to do that in the form of progression continua. Around time, we currently have guidelines on the weekly amount of time. Now this is, I suppose, again, Ireland is quite unique in this regard, in that many educational systems have a monthly or termly or an annual allocation of time, and some have no allocation of time at all. So there are other models out there, and NCCA are currently looking at this because we have to advise the Minister in 2016, my final point, in this regard. And we're looking at models such as perhaps termly allocation of time, which would mean greater flexibility for teachers in how they manage that time and towards outcomes and subjects. Another big question is, where will it all fit? This is the current structure of our primary school curriculum, with our curriculum areas and our subjects under those areas. So the question has to be asked, is it going to be a new subject? I'm sorry, you can't really see that. Or is it going to be two subjects? Is it going to be ERB and ethics? Is it going to be a framework, a little bit like ASHTR, the early childhood learning framework, or the junior cycle framework, where you might have broad outcomes to be met through, within and across the curriculum? I suppose what comes up there, a question arises as to the effectiveness of that framework and will it make meaningful change in classrooms? But that's just a question to be raised. Or will it be guidelines for schools to follow, broad guidelines like our intercultural guidelines, for instance? And again, the question arises around effectiveness and so on. So I'm afraid it's been a very quick tour, but I'd like to just finish off by speaking about the experience of children, sorry Mary, in this curriculum, because this is what it's all about. So through a child's engagement with the curriculum, they will foster a sense of identity and belonging by developing their self-awareness, self-confidence, self-esteem, and ultimately their happiness. Children will share ideas about the world, promoting relationships and friendships with those of different belief backgrounds. As a child reflects on their own beliefs and values and those of others, they come to a greater understanding of themselves and others. A child's active engagement with ethics will contribute to their awareness of the complexities of human behaviour and promote the development of skills and dispositions required to live and contribute in a positive way to diverse societies. Children will develop an acceptance of the right to hold a particular belief or attitude. They will be sensitive to the diversity of religions and beliefs and the contribution this diversity makes to the richness of society. Children will engage in and promote communication and dialogue between people of different cultural, religious and non-religious backgrounds. They will learn how to contest prejudice and the worst effects of stereotyping. I remember at the IPPN conference last year, or 2 years ago, Sir John Jones raised recalled an important saying in teacher education, that children won't remember what you teach them, they'll only remember how you make them feel. And I think that's an important sentiment to hold on to in this when we talk about such an important area of education. As I mentioned earlier on, we're at the early stages of consultation. We've outlined our proposal, we've done our research, we've outlined our proposals, but now we need to get your views on this going forward. I'd encourage everyone to contribute to the consultation. Go online, it's ncca.ie, and it's on the front page. Read our proposals, fill out an online questionnaire, or attend one of our consultation events that are happening around the country, all advertised on our website. And please have your say on what's going to be a very important development in Irish education, especially at primary level. Thank you. Sorry, Mary.